Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to Georgie Ogden Astrology. Thank you so much for being here. In this video, we are going to be talking about the moon. What does the moon represent in astrology? This is going to be covering the basic foundations of what the moon represents so that you have a bit more understanding of how to interpret your own moon and how to think about what the moon actually does in the sky as it's transiting through the signs. If you are new here, please hit the subscribe button. Please give this video a thumbs up. If you get some value from it, it really, really helps me push the channel out. This is one of my first few videos. I'm really trying to get the channel out. So please subscribe and like, really appreciate it. Do it right now. Hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much. And let's get into it. So, the moon in astrology. Now, this is obviously one of the most important planets in astrology. Okay, it is one of our luminaries. So the sun is a luminary and the moon is a luminary, and they're both extremely important because they are the light. Now, if you are born at night, as in if you were born before the sun has risen and after the sun has set, you actually may be more connected to your moon than what you are your sun. Okay, and vice versa. If you were born in the day, so after sunrise and before sunset, you will be more connected to your sun. Or you may find that in your chart, in your own chart, whichever, whether you've got a day chart or a night chart. So if you're born in the day, that's classed as a day chart in traditional astrology, and you may find that the sun is more in charge. If you are born at night, you may find that the moon is more in charge because this gives you a night chart, okay? And this is coming from traditional astrology. This is what ancient astrologers used to believe, okay? So they used to separate the day and the night. So if you have a night chart, just pay attention and just take a look at your sun sign, take a look at your moon sign, and see if you actually notice that the moon is more in charge in your chart or not. So this is a great way to just take a look at your own chart and see how it plays out for you and see how you feel. So the moon. Now, the moon is our inner world, okay? It's our inner feelings. It's basically your heart inside of you. And with the sun being our rationality, the moon is irrational, okay? And it's our automatic responses to things. So if somebody says something to you, for example, your automatic response, so say whatever this person has said brings up emotions, your automatic response comes from your moon sign. Okay, it doesn't necessarily represent who your sun is because it's irrational. So we all say, oh, emotions are running high. Now your emotions are coming from your moon sign. Okay, and the moon is telling of what's going on inside. And if you ever feel misunderstood, it's because your sun is not being able to express how your moon is feeling. Okay, so this is very interesting when you look at the combination between your sun and your moon, and actually, do they get on? Is your sun able to express how your moon is inside, or does it hinder you? So, for example, if your sun is square your moon in your chart, this is going to be a bit of tension between who you are and how you feel, because the moon wants to express, it wants to express itself. And sometimes your sun sign can block that because your sun is in charge and your moon wants to release from the inner knowing. Your moon is your subconscious thoughts, okay? It remembers. So the moon represents memories. So your moon sign remembers everything that's ever happened to you. And this is why when you have certain emotional responses, they can come from, past trauma, past events, because your moon is remembering things that have happened to you. It's remembering the trauma, and that is having an effect on how you are reacting. So obviously, from a psychological point of view, you would go to a therapist and they would explain, why you're behaving this way and certain behavioral patterns. But from an astrological point of view, the moon is your memories and it's remembering everything. Now, the moon represents Cancer. It rules Cancer, sorry. The moon rules Cancer. So if you have Cancer placements in your chart, you have a connection with the moon, and that connection is going to be more strong and you're going to be more emotional. For example, if you're a Cancer rising, the moon would be your chart ruler. Now, The moon is happy in Cancer because it can feel everything it wants to feel. The moon wants to feel. And even though some people that do have their moon in Cancer say, oh, this is awful, this is horrible, I'm so upset all the time, the moon is happy because it wants to feel. It's healthy to feel. It's healthy to feel all the emotions and release them. You know, crying is good for the body. You're releasing it from you. So the moon is actually happy in Cancer. Now, the sign opposite Cancer is Capricorn. The moon is in detriment in Capricorn, okay? Because Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, which is a cold planet. It doesn't like to feel, it doesn't like to deal with emotions, and it's very serious. It likes to just do things in a structured and disciplined way. It doesn't like to feel. So the moon in Capricorn can be quite a hard placement because these people just don't deal with emotions, and therefore they're suppressing them. And we know from a health point of view that suppressing your emotions is really bad for you. So if you're watching this and you've got your moon in Cancer and you hate that part of your personality, please just embrace it, because it's a beautiful thing to have your moon in Cancer, because you can understand other people. Okay, you are going to be more highly intelligent with your moon in a water sign because you understand people's emotions. So high emotional intelligence. High emotional intelligence is what comes from having your moon in a water sign. Now, the moon is exalted in Taurus, because Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Venus loves harmony and beauty and pleasantries and everything being just so. And the moon can really get on board with this. It's the feminine energies, because the moon is our feminine energy and the sun is our masculine energy. So moon being feminine energy gets on well with Venus because Venus is also feminine. So they're like best friends. So when you've got harmonious moon and Venus placements in your chart, this is positive, and these are going to bring about pleasantries and getting along well. Being an attractive person comes from having healthy moon Venus placements in your chart. Being polite, being courteous, being well liked comes from moon and Venus. So when the moon is in Taurus, she gets on really well. Taurus is also a stable earth sign, okay? So it grounds the moon. So the moon can be feminine, but she's grounded. So it's actually seen as very lucky to have your moon in Taurus, because you are going to be pleasant and grounded. Okay, so there's that balance there of feminine energy but grounded energy. Because, for example, Taurus also rules Libra. The moon in Libra is quite harmonious. It's not a bad placement for the moon, but Libra is a bit more shallow. So moon in Libra can be a bit more shallow, a bit more vain, a bit more what's the opposite of sentimental? Just a bit more kind of materialistic. That's the word I'm looking for. A bit more materialistic with moon in Libra. However, again, a balanced placement for the moon. Now, the moon is obviously our emotion. So when we're feeling from our moon placement. So depending on what sign you have your moon in, and depending what aspects are being made to your moon, this is such a big part of your personality. Just learning about your moon placement is going to give you so much information on your personality, okay? How is your moon aspected? What sign is it in? And how are you expressing yourself? Because the moon wants to express itself. The moon also represents the mother. So when you look at your moon in your own chart, what aspects are being made to it and what sign is it in? This is representing your relationship with your mum. It also represents you as a mother as well, your ability to become a mother. I'm not going to go into the medical astrology of it, but if your moon is badly aspected, badly afflicted, under pressure, there could be some issues in you becoming a mother. Okay, that's a separate topic, but that's just something to note. It represents you as a mother and your own mother. So, for example, if you have your moon in Aquarius, it could highlight that your mum was emotionally distant, because Aquarius is quite an aloof sign. The moon in Aquarius, it could highlight that your mum was emotionally distant in some way. Obviously, aspects will play a part in this. If you have your moon in Cancer, for example, it could be that your mum was very nurturing, very caring, maybe very emotional herself, or just very attentive. So it's good. It's great to look at the condition of the moon. If there's like harsh aspects like squares, if your moon has got a square to Neptune, it could be that your mum was involved in some sort of escapism, or she wasn't there, or there's some sort of distance between her, or there's some confusion around your mum. Maybe she had an illness. Maybe there's some confusion there, because a harsh aspect to Neptune would suggest escapism not being there being some sort of distance between you and your mum. So it's very important to look at the condition of your moon. The moon is where we find security. So it's our comfort, it's our home. So whichever house your moon is in, this is where you're going to gain comfort. This is where you find emotional comfort. So for example, if you have your moon in the second house, it's going to be important for you to have physical financial security for you to feel safe. If you have your moon in the first house, your environment is going to have an effect on how safe you feel. You're going to be very sensitive to your environment with your moon in the first house, because the first house is how you approach the world. And with your moon here, it's making you sensitive to your surroundings. The moon also represents the past. So when we think about our feelings, when we're feeling stuff, a lot of the time things are coming up from the past. The sun represents the here and now. Your sun sign represents the here and now. The moon represents the past. Again, it makes sense with your emotions and how your emotions come up. The moon is very creative because it's about expressing yourself. So the moon is very creative, it's very imaginative, it's very intuitive, and it's very sentimental. It's also very sensitive and very adaptive. It ebbs and flows. So we can feel this real sensitivity around those words that I've just used: intuitive, sensitive, adaptive, imaginative, creative. So when the moon gets on board with planets of similar nature like Venus and Neptune, these can actually accelerate that moon's desire to creative. So if you've got pleasant aspects with Venus and Neptune, for example, both planets of creativity, the moon can really, really flow. The moon is ebbing and flowing. So whichever area of life, whichever house the moon is in, you may see ups and downs. It ebbs and flows like the tides in and out. The moon also rules habits, because if you think about the fact that it rules memories, when you create habits, the moon, your body remembers that, your brain remembers the habits you're creating, and so therefore the moon rules habits. So if you get into a bad habit, it's coming from your moon sign. If you get into a good habit, it's coming from your moon sign. So you really must focus on the habits that you're creating based on the placement in your chart. For example, if you have your moon in Leo, you are going to have a need to express yourself. So it's going to be important to create certain habits around being able to express yourself in a healthy way rather than expressing yourself in an unhealthy way. So, craving attention in the wrong area where could come from your moon in Leo, and creating a habit around that. But instead, you could create a habit around, making YouTube videos, teaching people online, doing that kind of self-expression and creating habits around that, and then your moon's going to be happy. So in order to make your moon happy, you need to pay attention to what it is that it actually wants. What is it that it wants? What is it that it actually needs to be happy? This is a big part, but there needs to be a balance. You don't want to give too much attention to your moon, because the sun is in charge. So you need to find a balance here between your sun and your moon, because these are your luminaries. Both your luminaries are as important as each other. And if you are born at night, you might find your moon's ruling things a bit too much. So it's a good way to balance yourself out is to actually think, what does my sun need? What does my moon need? And try and give them both that equal attention. When the moon energy has gone wrong, it can be very moody. It can be irrational, and it can be restless. This is when your moon isn't right. It's the moodiness, the restlessness, the irrational. So these are the downsides of the moon. So yes, the moon is creative and dreamy and imaginative and sensitive, but the downside is irrationality, irrational emotional reactions. Okay, so this is where we need to do the inner work. This is where we need to think, okay, how do I react emotionally, and how can I work on that? Because remember, it's unconscious reactions. We don't necessarily have control over how these emotions are coming up. The moon in water signs is because it's your instincts. And the moon in water signs is actually very psychic placement. So if you do have your moon in a water sign, you've probably got some, I mean, we all have psychic abilities, we just need to develop them, but some find it more easily than others. And having your moon in a water sign is going to help you with this because it's so intuitive. You haven't got the block of the earth. For example, if your moon's in an earth sign, you're too grounded. But in a water sign, you've got the flow. You've got the flow of the information coming to you. The moon also represents, so the moon represents the general public, and it represents females and children. So in a chart, for example, it represents all of those things. So when you're trying to think about how something could be manifesting if you're reading a chart, you need to remember that the moon can represent the general public. So if you have your moon up in the 10th house, these people are most likely to be well known, or they have some connections to the public in general, because the 10th house is our public image and the moon is representative of the general public. So you are going to be more likely to be in the public eye with your moon up in the 10th house. And you may benefit, so using that same example, you may benefit from females because the moon also represents females. And if you've got your moon in the 10th house of public image, these public people could be most likely to be female because the moon is the feminine, it's the feminine energy. And like I think I've already mentioned, the moon also represents children as well. So when we're thinking about the moon, for example, on the north and south node, this is your life path. The moon in that sense is the archetype of the child, because one of the themes of the moon represents children. So there's certain parts and certain times when we're looking at a chart when it's representing a child or your inner child. I think I forgot to mention that because the moon is exalted in Taurus, it's in fall in Scorpio, because it's very far away from home. Okay, so when a planet is in fall, it doesn't have all the equipment and all the tools that it needs to behave like it usually would. So therefore it has less tools, so it struggles a bit. And the moon in Scorpio, with Scorpio being such a deep and intense water sign, the moon can feel a little bit overwhelmed. So people with their moon in Scorpio can feel overwhelmed. They can feel overburdened and run down with their emotions. So they probably have to do a lot of inner work to help the moon in this placement, depending on the aspects, but it can be quite a tricky placement for the moon. Now, that's pretty much everything I've got on the moon, just in terms of basic knowledge. Please let me know in the comments if you can think of other things that the moon represents. Go and check out, if you haven't checked out my sun video, go and check out my sun video. And if you haven't liked and subscribed, please do it. I appreciate it so much. I hope you got some value from that. Please go and follow me on TikTok and Instagram as well. Let's connect. Let's be friends. And thanks for being here. See you soon. Lots of love.